Now finally, the piece de resistance, the two-handed sword, or the great sword. This is my personal favorite, as I'm sure it's going to be a lot of people's. High damage, high control. It doesn't have as much utility as, say, the Warhammer, but it has damage to compensate for that, while also providing some utility of its own. The one ability in particular, on the Warhammer, it was, on your third attack, you grant protection to yourself and all allies. On the Greatsword, it is you grant might to yourself. So every third attack, you are increasing your attack damage. I do believe this buff that you get only applies to you. Second is the sigil that you put into the ground that grants retaliation. Retaliation is a buff that reflects damage back to its source, and anyone standing on this sigil gets the retaliation buff. So let's say you use it in the middle of a melee group and the boss is about to do an AoE, everybody has a retaliation, so you reflect all the damage back to the boss. The range is very short, and I wouldn't say it's the best ability, the best damage ability you have, but it is still very good.
Strong.
I think it's better used defensively than offensively. Now your third ability is that Magic Whirlwind. You do massive damage to all opponents near you and slightly away from you. Each of those blades you send out does damage, but you swinging around your sword does damage as well. So if an opponent is slightly away from you, they'll get hit by the rings only. Whereas if you get an opponent right next to you, they'll be getting hit by the blade as well as the rings and take massive damage. Unfortunately, the range isn't as much as I think it should be, as I feel it should be, but that's something I can just get over. It is while it does do a tremendous amount of damage, it is very easy to avoid the damage. As you can see, that thing is right in front of me, but it doesn't even touch it. Where that thing was getting smashed by both the rings and the sword and took massive damage. I should also note that all of those abilities can critically hit. Every single one of those hits. And range isn't much of an issue when you can leap through the air. That was the 4 ability, Leap of Faith, where you leap onto an opponent to do damage, and if they get caught, if you aim it right, you'll always do the leap. But the issue I've had with it is you need to catch someone on the leap to do damage and blind them. Otherwise, you just put yourself towards them and you don't get the extra bonus. So you can use the leap to gap close as much as you like, but you have to actually hit the guy in order to apply the blindness debuff and do the damage. The range on the leap to do damage is actually rather short. Also, I believe since these guys are passive, jumping at them doesn't apply the debuff, because the game assumes that you don't want to hit them. Why it doesn't do that for the Whirlwind, I'll never know. But game design is game design. Your fifth ability is Binding Blade. You throw that sword at an opponent, and you can activate it again to drag the opponent towards you. So you can leap through the air at an opponent, or you can just throw a sword at them and drag them back to you, giving the greatsword a lot of control ability, allowing you to stick to your opponent and do the massive damage with your auto attacks and your whirlwind. That guy wasn't gonna get away. Now that is all the weapons aside from the water weapons. So I'm going to show my utility skills before I go do the water weapons. You have 4 utility skill slots and then an elite skill slot. The 6th skill is always your heal. There are various heals. My heal in particular heals me while shielding me from damage. So I do this heal and I get this shield that blocks all damage. So I can't be killed while I'm healing. I found great use of it while, being hit by multiple opponents, because multiple opponents is generally a death sentence in this game. They're all wailing on me, I can heal and protect myself, and then whirlwind to kill them all. Signets are very interesting, in that you get a passive buff that is on as long as the signet is not on cooldown. The Signet of Resolve is that you get a debuff removed every 10 seconds without question. And then you can activate the Signet and put it on cooldown to heal yourself. So, if you're not using your heal, you are repeatedly having debuffs removed. Whereas the other heal was only helping you when you used it. But all Signets lose their passive bonus when you use the Signet. Next is Sanctuary, my 7 ability. I put a lot of you can choose whatever utility abilities you like. I prefer these protective abilities. This ability shoves out all foes, protects from all projectiles, and heals all allies who are caught in it. So, if we're in a losing battle, I can push all enemies away, heal all my allies, and protect us for a small duration while we recuperate. My 8th ability is Purging Flames, where I send out all this ring of fire that deals damage to enemies over the course, giving them the burn debuff, but it also removes debuffs from allies. I have my utility skills set up so I do a lot of damage while also providing a lot of utility and protection for my friends. You can have 3 utility abilities, 1 healing ability, and the elite skill. I have not unlocked any of the elite skills, and I hope to bring those to you in a later video. I also have this Bane Signet, which is another Signet to show you how they work. As long as it's not on cooldown, I have increased attack damage, but I can take it off cooldown to stun something for a moment. Now, as for other utility abilities you can summon spectral weapons to give you new skill sets entirely. There's more Signets that, provide passives as well as actives. as this one improves healing and it also revives a nearby ally. That's wonderful. You also have these sort of battle shouts where your character will actually yell, hold the line, stand your ground, and provide these buffs to your allies. You have these protective abilities like my Wall of Reflection. Or my Sanctuary, I'm sorry. And there are also various abilities to move, debuffs around from your allies to you. Remove all conditions from yourself and turn them into boons. That would be wonderful to use with Martyr. You absorb all the debuffs of your allies and then turn them all into more buffs for yourself. Siege Corps to remove 3 debuffs from you, or a random boon. And here we are in the lake to show you the water abilities. I'm going to be starting with the spear, or in my case the harpoon. Now the auto attack for the spear is actually rather entertaining. I feel it's one of the better auto attacks that you get. What it does is, it constantly reapplies the vulnerability debuff to an opponent. The vulnerability subtracts defense from the opponent, making them more vulnerable to more damage. This is a wonderful thing to spam because it does stack the intensity of the debuff. The more vulnerability you put on something, the less defense it has, and the more damage it takes. Now that was Zealot's Flurry, where you stab the opponent multiple times in a very short duration to deal a large amount of damage. Right there, I took off half that thing's health with one Zealot's Flurry. If I was stacking vulnerability before that, it would do even more damage. That was Brilliance. It deals damage to all nearby foes as well as blinding them. This is an AoE blind, so you can blind an entire group of opponents if they're giving you trouble. Pretty lights. The Guardian does incredible damage. Now that was the 4 ability. Spear Wall. Spear Wall creates this beautiful wall of pointy, sharp, light things. Enemies caught in it will take constant damage while swimming through it. As you can see, it absolutely melted that poor Drake thing. Now the 5th ability is Wrathful Grasp. You shoot at that light to grab onto something, afflict it with burning, and then drag it back to you. Grasp at it, and it's in your face and dead. Now I found an interesting combination with the Spear Wall and the Wrathful Grasp. Spear Wall and then you can grouse the enemy into the spear wall, so they take the full damage from the wall. Let's see if I can show this off rather properly. I kind of questioned the use of the spear wall because Zealot's Flurry just did so much damage, but the spear wall does have the AoE effect to it. Now the Trident is the staff of underwater. You start with your one ability, Light of Judgment, which does damage, but also heals allies who pass through the light. So if there's somebody between me and this lizard, they're getting healed right now. Second is Purify, where you fire off this light. It kind of works like Cleansing Flames, where it's an AoE fire damage, but it also cleanses all debuffs from allies caught in the blast. So you can fire it off into a group of allies to remove debuffs from them. You can also detonate abilities as soon as you fire them, so you can just stand in the group of your allies and just detonate it as soon as you fire it off to help you with the aiming. Now the third is the Pillar of Light, which works kind of like the Smite ability, where it creates a pillar that constantly damages the opponent as long as they are in the pillar. Now Refraction causes this bubble that absorbs spells and projectiles, as well as granting retaliation to everyone inside. You can use this in the middle of your group to grant retaliation to everyone. It does not push enemies away from you, which makes it different from some of the other abilities that work like this. And finally is the Weight of Justice. You essentially attach a magical anchor to an opponent and drag them to the bottom of the ocean. Several classes have an ability like this. I don't exactly see the usage of it, aside from holding an opponent in place. It is essentially an underwater immobilize. And it does have use with Ray of Light, since Ray of Light hits a whole area, top to bottom. So you can Ray of Light someone, and then Weight of Justice them to keep them in the Ray of Light, just like you could do with Immobilize and Smite.
This has been Ty, showing off all of the abilities for the Guardian profession in Guild Wars 2. Thank you very much, and be sure to check out our other videos if you want to know about the other professions.